and welcome. You're watching Happiest Health. I'm Revati. When we talk about love, it's all about the heart. But does the brain have anything to do with it? Or does the brain have everything to do with it? We'll discuss that and more with Dr. Helen Fisher, who joins us today. She's a biological anthropologist from New York. She studies the evolution, biology, and psychology of love. She's been in the field for more than 40 years, studying the brain to understand the neural systems involved in love, relationship, romance, and even cheating. Dr. Helen, thank you so much for joining us today. I couldn't think of a better person to answer all those questions on the internet on the signs of love.
I'm delighted to be with you.
Is it healthy to be in love? What are the health benefits of love?
Oh, there's a tremendous health benefits. I mean, when you're in a very positive relationship with somebody, it actually lowers blood pressure, decreases cholesterol and cortisol, the stress hormone. It's good for your memory, your mood, your mental agility. When you get hugs from a partner, it drives up oxytocin, gives you feelings of deep attachment. As you laugh with somebody, it drives up dopamine in the brain and gives you optimism and energy and focus and motivation. And as you play with somebody, it actually develops brain growth. So we were built to love. We were just built to love. And then the brain and the whole body gets into sync when you're in a happy, good partnership.
All right, we're all built for love, and the body is in sync when you're in a good relationship. But Dr. Helen, you're talking about the brain in love, but it's often the heart that is associated with love. What does the heart have to do with love?
It's interesting. Different cultures have explained love in terms of other parts of the body too. Well, I mean, when you first see somebody and you fall madly in love with them, your heart will pound. I mean, but it is the brain. I mean, it's the brain that runs everything in the body. And what we put over 100 people into the scanner, and we found a tiny little factory near the base of the brain that pumps out dopamine. And dopamine is a natural stimulant, and it can certainly get your heart pumping also.
The heart pounding when you see someone, right? Is love at first sight real?
Apparently, it is real. I mean, I do an annual study with Match.com. I cook up about 200 questions. We farm those out, and we collect data on about 5,000 Americans. We do not poll the matched members. This is not real science. And we now have data on 60,000 Americans. And I've asked people, do you believe in love at first sight? And both men and women will say yes. And over 50% of Americans will say it has actually happened to them. And what's actually happening to them is as you grow up, you develop a love map, a list of what you're actually looking for in a partner. And then when the time is right, and you meet somebody and they smile at you and laugh with you, and you're ready to fall in love, it can trigger that brain circuitry, and boom, you're off to the races and madly in love.
Right, so love at first sight is real, is what Dr. Helen tells us. There's science behind that. But when you're looking at these studies, when you're researching, have you found out, on an average, how long does love last?
Americans, and I wonder if in India too, people believe that there are these stages, that first you fall madly in love with somebody, and then it slowly moves into feelings of deep attachment instead. Those are two different brain systems, the brain system for romantic love and the brain system for attachment. But I and my colleagues have put 15 people into the brain scanner using fMRI, who came into the lab saying they're still in love with their partner. And these people were married an average of 21 years. And so both men and women, well, we didn't believe them. We believed that intense romantic love can decline with time. And sure enough, in all of these people, we found activity in the same brain region linked with feelings of intense romantic love. You got to pick the right person. You got to know how to run your partnership, but it is entirely possible to remain in love long term. In fact, I did another study of about 5,000 people who were married, and I asked them, are you still in love with your partner? And 75% said yes.
Well, that sounds like good news, I hope.
Good news. You got to pick the right person, but it's good news.
We talked about the health benefits of being in love. Are there health benefits of being single?
I think that you can get a great deal of some of these same experiences if you have a lot of friends. We evolved for millions of years on the grasslands of ancient Africa, and we lived in little hunting and gathering groups of about 25 men and women and children. And in fact, we are a social animal. And certainly, if you're happy being single, and I was for many, many years, I had something to do every single night. I only got married actually a couple of years ago. And if you've got solid friendships and places to turn when you need some good advice and people who can laugh with you and go do new and interesting things for you, yes, good friendships actually do lower blood pressure, are good for your heart rate and lower cholesterol. When you laugh with people, as I mentioned, it can drive up the dopamine, give you feelings of optimism, focus, motivation, energy. When you go out and explore with people, it's good for your mental growth. And in fact, having no friends is as bad as gaining too much weight or smoking or drinking too much. So the bottom line is, if you don't want to have a lover and you don't want a lover and you've got a whole pile of friends, it's just fine.
Dr. Helen, you also do a lot of studies on online relationships. Do online relationships work in the long term?
As a matter of fact, it works better for long-term relationships than just meeting somebody in a bar or even through a friend. As I say, I do this annual study with Match, and when we ask every year, where did you meet your last first date? And in fact, 40% in America now meet online, as opposed to 25% meet through a friend, and less than 10% meet in a bar or a church or wherever. And there's new data that if you met somebody online, anywhere online, as opposed to offline, you're less likely to divorce. And I wondered, why would that be? Why would it make any difference if you met somebody on a vacation or in the library or at a museum or in the street? Why would it make any difference? So I did my own study, and I found that people who meet and court online as opposed to offline are more likely to be fully employed, more likely to be higher educated, and more likely to be looking for a long-term solid partnership. And it is true, people who met online, in America anyway, are less likely to divorce.
Does the male brain and the female brain work differently when it comes to love and relationships? There's a question online that asks if men move on faster after a breakup. Are they wired differently?
We just don't understand men and we don't understand women. All of the data show that men fall in love faster. They fall in love more often. When they meet somebody they are in love with, they want to introduce that person to friends and family sooner. They want to move in sooner. Men have more intimate conversations with their partners than women do, because women have their intimate conversations with their girlfriends. And men are 2.5 times more likely to kill themselves when a relationship is over. So when it comes to love, men are the fragile sex. And I'm really glad you asked, because I have been telling this to the press for 40 years. They want to believe that women are the fragile sex. We are not.
For the brain, is love and addiction the same?
It is one form of addiction, yes. When we put people into the brain scanner who were madly in love, who'd been rejected in love, and who were in love long term, we found activity in a tiny little factory called the nucleus accumbens. And that little factory becomes activated with all of the addictions, all of the substance addictions like alcohol or cigarettes or heroin or cocaine, and all of the behavioral addictions like gambling or sex addiction or food addiction, and love addiction. Yes, it is an addiction. And it has many of the traits of an addiction. I mean, you focus on a person, they're camping in your head. You can't get them out. You obsessively think about the person. You're highly motivated to win them. Love has all of the signs of addiction. What I'm trying to get the world to understand, which they don't want to understand, is that it can be a positive addiction. It evolved millions of years ago so that you could fall in love with somebody, form a partnership, and have children and send your DNA into tomorrow. So it had to be a very strong addiction so that you would put all your love on one person and then raise babies. And indeed, it can be a very positive addiction. On the other hand, over 95% of people have been dumped or dumped somebody else. And as I said, nobody gets out of love alive. We all suffer, but when the addiction is going beautifully, it is the elixir of love. Yes, I think that, I'm addicted to my husband. I'm deeply attached to him. I'm madly in love with him. And it probably is an addiction. In my case, it's a very, very positive addiction. I mean, if he were to leave me, I'd sit at the edge of my bed and cry and play music to kill yourself by. That's probably an addiction.
That takes me to my next question. Do people cheat when they fall out of love, or is it possible that they're truly madly in love with somebody but can still cheat?
It's just a wonderful question. I study cheating. I've looked at it in over 40 cultures. Basically, they asked people why they cheated and whether they were what they thought of their partner. And something like 54% of men and 38% of women said they still were in happy marriages, but yet they were still sleeping around. So, I mean, certainly people will sleep around when they are, oh, their partner's out of town, or they get bored, or they want to solve a sex problem, or they're traveling at a conference and they are lonely, et cetera, et cetera. Many, many. If you ask people why they are cheating, they'll give you a whole host of psychological reasons. But a good many people do like their home life as well.
So then, is there science behind this? Is the system involved, the brain area involved in cheating, different from the brain area involved in love?
Um, I do think that there's a Darwinian evolutionary explanation to this. Let's go back a million years. If you had a wife or a husband, good, and you had two children, great. But if you occasionally slipped over the hill and you were a man and had two extra children with somebody else in the woods, you would double the amount of DNA you sent into tomorrow. And so people who have a propensity for adultery are going to have more children and pass on perhaps that predisposition to cheat. But why would a woman cheat? I mean, she can't have another new child every single time she sneaks around, but she can get extra support for her and her children, so her children may survive better because she's simply gotten more meat for them, or more protection for them, or and also, if her husband or partner, whomever, gets eaten by a lion or something, she may have somebody who will step in and help her raise her DNA. So the bottom line is, through millions of years of having cheating be somewhat adaptive, because you're going to have either more children or healthier children, we have passed on to the human creature this propensity to cheat. Now, not everybody cheats, even if you have the propensity to it. I mean, it's like alcoholism. In New York, you can go to a bar on every block, but not everybody drinks too much. In the same way, in our modern world, we have a great deal of opportunity to cheat, and a huge percentage of people don't do it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Helen, for explaining in such detail the science behind love, romance, relationships, sex, and adultery. Hope to collaborate with you again in the future. Thank you so much for joining.
I'm delighted. Thank you.
If you found this video informative, like the video, share it in your circles, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the bell icon to be notified every time we upload new content.